Hello, hello. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
This is Chiu from Sydney. And actually, at the beginning of every show, I will always thank the guests for spending time coming on the show, chatting and sharing experiences. But I was going to say it's actually not very relevant for him because he's actually very free now. Lots of time to come on and talk all he wants. Yeah, so anyway, this is my good friend Chu, and he hails from Sydney right now. Actually, at this moment where he's sitting, he is at the base of Blue Mountains. That's where his home is. So maybe Chu, you want to give a little bit of introduction and we share with everybody where you are, and then make everybody jealous because everybody's kind of like locked down in Singapore right now.
Yeah, that's right. I'm technically on lockdown as well, which is why I'm very free. And Australia is currently, I'm in Sydney right now, or we call it New South Wales. The New South Wales state itself currently on quite a strict lockdown whereby we are not allowed to leave our home for more than in more than 10 kilometers radius. So technically we can't do anything. Shops are all closed, and because right now we've got the Delta variant going around in New South Wales, mainly in Sydney, and the authorities right now is really clamping down the movements of the people. So I'm not going to complain about my fortunate situation, my so-called unfortunate situation here, because I got a really nice big backyard here. I've got a really nice backyard here. I don't really feel like I'm being cooped up in the HDB house like you guys are. So yeah, I got really a lot of things to do here in my house. Mentioning, I am really free. It's like I've got 3 weeks of don't know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, he has a really nice place over there. I mean, I have, I think a few years back, I think that was like some 5 to 6 years back, sorry, in fact, 5 years back, I think, right? So I actually went over to Sydney for a course and then I stayed at his place. And then I actually just took it upon myself to treat his house like some fancy resort. Yeah, he's actually really literally at the base of Blue Mountains, and every morning there's this huge flock of birds and what, cockatoos, right?
Cockatoos, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you fly in and then that's your natural alarm clock.
If I'm not wrong, cockatoos in Singapore, they're selling it for, I mean, really good ones, right? For like 10K for per cockatoos kind of thing. Yeah. So every time when I see them flying to my backyard, it's like, oh, I could be a millionaire if I bring this to Singapore.
You gotta try harder, man. I knew Chu right back from the day when I was climbing and coaching climbing. Oh my gosh, how long ago was that? How many years
15, 17 years ago. Yeah, close to about 17 years ago.
Yeah, I think we started.
So 17 years about some, yeah.
We first met at Climb Asia.
Climb Asia.
Climb Asia is the place, right? Yeah. So anyway, so I knew Chu then from climbing back then, and then I was a coach then, and then he started coaching too, and then now he is also coaching in Sydney. Yeah. So maybe share a little bit more about what do you do there?
Okay, well, basically, like what Karina was mentioning, I was originally the program manager for Climb Asia. That was when right now it's being occupied by Ground Ups. And that's where I actually got to know Corinne Lai, because she was one of the coaches there. She was one of the list of coaches that I could use to employ for my programs and things like that. And my predecessor who I took over the job from was mentioning to me that you need to look for Corinne Lai. She's one of the best. Like, really? So it's like practically every week I was trying to get her to come in. This, right? Yeah. Well, yeah, you were like one of the top 10, you were top 5. So yeah, so and then because of that, Corinne Lai and myself, both of us kind of worked together a lot of the programs here and there with like basic climbing workshops and things like that. I think you remember doing that, right? Yeah, technique workshops and things like that. And then later on, I took a break from climbing. I went into a bit of photography, joined a studio company for a while, and also didn't like that. Taught in Republic Poly for a while. I really like that. Yeah, I really enjoyed teaching. And that's where during that time also I was also at the same time I was coaching a bunch of girls from RGS, Raffles Girls School. And these girls were highly motivated. They were very, very smart. Most of them later on became doctors and accountants from KPMG and stuff like that.
Yeah, why now? For some reason, smart people must become doctors.
Yeah, too smart, right? No other option. If you're that smart, you got to be a doctor. But anyway, yeah. So they are very highly motivated. And for some reason they came and they asked me to coach them, and I kind of like, yeah, just do it for the fun of it. And at the same time, I had other senior coaches who were teaching me how to coach as well. People like Philip Lim. I'm not sure if you guys know who he is. Yeah, that's right. He was like our grandmaster. He taught us practically everything. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, he taught us nearly everything about what we need to know about coaching at that point in time. And then I used whatever he taught me, and I read a lot about things, and I taught these girls how to climb. And then they went for the French com. That was like so long ago. And with just 3 months of climbing, these girls were climbing from like 5C or 6A, and they were suddenly leading 7Cs in just 3 months. And over a short period of time, they were like climbing not 7C, 7A, 7A, wow, 7C, my goodness. So in just 3 months, they were climbing 7As, 7A plus in 3 months on lead. And I was fascinated. I was like, wow, maybe I'm good at this. I started reading a lot more about it, and the fact that I was coaching a lot of girls at the point in time, I read up a lot about how to coach girls. But a lot of the coaching material at the point in time were not catered towards climbing; they were catered towards gymnasts. There was not a lot of studies or research on training young girls, especially on how to train them correctly, what you can do, what you can't do, and things like that. And I'm a guy, my goodness, like what do I know? so I was very very concerned whether can I be implementing certain strategies that are so-called known to coach climbers, or even for physical trainings on young people itself. And what later on I learned some 10 years ago, it was quite disturbing, that a lot of the things that we learned or been told about exercising were mainly research on adult males. And if they are mainly research on adult males, that means we can't even implement it on adult females. What more so on younger females?
On adolescents, right?
That's right, yeah. So it got me really even more concerned at the point in time when I realized that fact. And like, oh my goodness, we've been doing everything wrong. Maybe we're not doing everything wrong, but we're doing certain things that might cause harm to these young people. And then that grew more in my interest in wanting to know more how to train these young people correctly. And then I came to Sydney about 9 years ago. And
has it been 9 years?
Yes. So long ago, right?
Yeah. Goodness. Oh, you look the same.
Right.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
That's
right. Yeah. So I came to Sydney and I look at all these girls that I train, right? People like Lynette, remember Lynette Cole, things like that. She's like so old right now. She's coaching herself. And I came here to Sydney 9 years ago, and I got so sick and tired of training girls. Like, no, I don't want to train girls anymore. Whiny thing, All right, fine. I'm not being sexist here. So second, I'm gonna start training guys. All right. So I started training boys. And a lot of these boys that I trained at the point in time were only 12 years old to about 15 years old. Again, I faced the same problem. Not knowing how to train them correctly in terms of like strength training and things like that. But thankfully, at the point in time, I was very heavily influenced by what Philip Lim taught me at the point in time. I was very, very heavily centered towards technique climbing. I mean, technique in terms of putting more emphasis on skill and techniques rather than strength and power, which is not exactly right to a certain degree. Because we kind of need a balance in it. But yeah, but thankfully at the point in time, I was focusing a lot of technique and skill with these younger climbers. And naturally they got stronger anyway. Yeah, and without the need to pound them with hard physical strength training, and because of that they didn't really injure themselves or have any long-term injuries so much so that right now most of them that I've coached in the past are now climbing like 8A plus 8B and just constantly going up, and they're still
They're
keeping
big
up
boys now.
yeah, that's right, they're big boys, yeah. And they're like now climbing B13s, B14s, and I mean, unless
So generally, when you are coaching your kids, what kind of methodology or I would say method do you focus on then?
I go at them right with this like long stick. No, I was kidding.
So Asian, and that's why they want to hire Asian coach.
Actually, you know what? Frankly speaking, that's one of the things that I do get from my Australian parent. The parents from these Australian kids, they did mention that I am a little bit more strict than the other coaches, and that to a certain degree, that's what they like about it. Because they find that if they want the kid to be really be more serious in what they do, to go for World Cup, like the youth World Cups and things like that, then there's a certain level of discipline and strictness that's required from the coaches itself. The methodology that I employ for most of my elite athletes right now, right, is very different from how I coach or train. Okay, let's define the word training and coaching. All right. When I use the word training, what it means that I'm there supervising them, instructing them, telling them what to do, how to move, when to how to execute a proper cross leg or drop knee or flag and things like that. And then I'll correct them. I train them until they can get it right and stuff like that. But a lot of my elite athletes who are now 15 years old or even 14 to the age of 17 years old, right? I'm not doing that anymore. I am coaching them. I'm just like guiding them. I'm like asking them questions. How do you feel about that move? Could it be done better? Do you think there's other places that you can utilize your energy than just simply pulling for it? Things like that. Could you step through that whole move into your left arm so that you're not just simply using your left arm to make that pull? I'm just asking questions. I'm just like being that person in their head,
Yeah.
facilitating.
Well,
That's right, yeah.
I mean, at that stage, because they're also at the elite level, possibly your role is more like a facilitator.
That's right, yeah.
To walk them through a certain process, so that they learn that way instead of like you giving out instructions.
That's right, yeah. And a lot of times, most of my elite athletes, right, it's not they're not competent enough. It's not they're not skillful enough. Maybe some of them lack some experience to understand when to employ certain techniques or certain skill, or when to be a bit stronger in certain move and things like that. What I found a lot of this elite here in Australia, I'm not sure about in Singapore, right? Because when I was coaching the girls in Singapore, these are very elite school, like RGS, right? These girls have very, very strong mindset. I never with the mindset aspect of the girls that I train in Singapore, but over here, whoa, the mindset just breaks down very quickly. It's like the minute they fail on a certain move, they it's almost like they're gonna cry, they're gonna give up and stuff like that. And there's a lot of emotional aspect of me as a coach to deal with.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And it comes to a point about it feels like, am I a climbing coach, or am I a counselor?
That's what a coach. I mean, that's really the truth, right? All coaches are actually need to learn some sort of counseling skills.
And
right.
yeah, it's true. I mean, it's like the more I work in this field as an elite coach, training elite athletes who are meant to be ready for World Cup, and some of them are even like, I want to be part of the Olympics in the next 4 years, kind of thing. And that's in Paris. Okay, then this part here, the mindset needs to be a lot stronger.
back to the coaches. I mean, I would say honestly, even from my experience as a teacher and with the coaches that I met before, and even now, I mean, I still have a lot of friends in the education industry. I'm still teaching PE, and then they also deal with a lot of coaches. Still, I would say predominantly the methodology of coaching and getting the kids to move or train is still pretty much pretty old school.
Okay, define old school.
So I would say old school means they have not evolved. They're still doing the, okay, PT will be 20 times push-ups, then you do 20 sit-ups, then you do 50 jumping jacks.
But isn't there a place for that as well when the skill set or skill level of the individual is not there yet? Then that so-called traditional form of training them into that first is required. So is for example, like what I was mentioning to you, how I train my elite athletes and how I train my new climbers are very different. So when I train my elite athletes, it's more to guiding, more to facilitating. But my new climbers, I'll be like, hey, today I'm going to teach you this, I'm going to teach you that, and then you're going to practice on this for the next 4 weeks. And then 1 year later, he or she becomes a much more proficient climber. I'll start taking the half role. Sometimes I'll train and sometimes I'll go into the facilitating role.
What I mean by old school is from my observations is say for example, we're looking at a team, you're training a basketball team, right? And but you are not being intentional about programming in terms of inputting exercise choices that will help the kids perform better or help them be safer, because they're not putting in enough, like drills that involve rotational movements. Because a lot of basketballers do that, all this slamming, throwing, it's all rotational stuff, right? But then, when you send them off to PT and doing their repetitive drills, most of the time we see them, okay, do your push-ups, sit-ups, and then your star jumps and your whatever, one leg hop. Okay, so what I mean by old school is just that, right? In terms of coaching and planning the program, coaches have not evolved to starting to think about all these other elements that can be added in to benefit or help your kid be stronger and safer. So
yeah, I think I get what you mean. I don't know. I've never really liked all these push-ups and sit-ups and stuff like that, because it always reminds me of the military. Like, oh my goodness, back to those days again. And then
the kids grow up too thinking that exercise is like that. Exercise means doing I need to do my 100 sit-ups and then I need to do my 100 push-ups. Then that's so-called my exercise, right? But granted, things are always changing. There's always new discoveries, always new scientific discoveries about what works and what doesn't. What has been really good for since 20 years ago may or may not be relevant anymore. But as a coach, it's our duty to keep up with times and keep up with what's going on now, and then we make our own informed choices about which one to pick to whatever is relevant for the kids that we are working with, to apply it for them.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, take for example like stretching and stuff like that. I mean, for the longest time since during my primary school days and secondary school days in Singapore, right? It's like we're taught to do a lot of these static stretches. You stand there, you do this for 15 seconds or 30 seconds and things like that. And then it is only recently realized that we should be doing more dynamic stretches at the start first, before we go into the activities that we should be running. So even like CPI, I know that last time used to be like what 3 breath in and then 20 breaths, and then now it's like 50 press and 2 breath and things like that. So things just
no, you don't even need to do breath now.
Yeah, just go 100, go 100.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, I just need my refresher. I'm like, what? I don't need to blow now. Okay, that's quite good news actually.
Yeah. What if the person warm it?
So you see, even the paramedics have evolved, right? What's relevant for a first aider? Because what's your role? Your role is, to be the first responder. Does it matter if you do this? Does it matter if you do that? No.
Yeah.
Right. So help the first aider instead of sticking to that I don't know, stuffy rule about must do like that, like that, like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to sum it all up for what the coach needs to do, right? He needs to be constantly keeping current. And one of the things that I notice, I'm not sure about in Singapore, but I do see it here in Australia, whereby coaches are quite stuck to their old methods of coaching and are not keeping up to the current changes in the sport itself. For example, in the past, right, climbing doesn't involve a lot of those I'm sure you've seen your daughter doing it before, those run, jump stuff and things like that, double dinos, things like that. We don't have that kind of things like 10 years ago, and all these new movements suddenly just appeared out of nowhere, and suddenly, yeah. So suddenly, a lot of these dynamic movements that technically, right, is very dangerous for young climbers or new climbers. Because
and,
of
and, and honestly, I would say too, because it enhances showmanship.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's how all these movements actually evolve. There are more and more of such moves these days.
Yeah.
For climbing, right? This is climbing. We're talking about climbing now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And to be able to execute this move, right? Is something quite new and quite current to climbers itself, and a lot of the coaches who are like me, who's like 44 years old, right? We are in the era of not doing the kind of things. So we tend to avoid teaching the council. We tend to avoid getting our young climbers to be exposed in the kind of things as well. And then you get a lot of younger coaches who would dare to expose their new or the athletes in the environment, but they are young and inexperienced as well. and then you see a lot of injuries coming from it. Yeah, and so I think there's a need to find that balance. And I don't know how to really go about this sometimes because to a certain degree, we do need to work together. And I do have young climbers with me who helps me with coaching and things like that. And sometimes I look at it, yeah, why are they doing all these silly run jumping again? But in my mind, after I'm sitting back and think about it is actually very necessary for these athletes to do that because otherwise they can't compete.
I think more and more the route setting for competitions they're going to include all these elements.
Yeah.
So I think regardless, you just have to still prepare the kids for it. But regardless, as well, I mean, it's the same concept. I think when I coach my mommy clients, right? You have to earn your right to be there.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I think you got that. You got a lot of, especially newer climbers, want to get there like tomorrow or today kind of thing, and then they start doing all this run jump stuff and they start breaking their ankle, injuring their shoulders and things like that because their body is not ready for it. And sometimes sad to say, it's just like playing a piano or playing like a musical instrument. You need to practice your
same. You have to master your basics. You have to master
basics. Yeah.
Basics.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm sure you guys living in HDB houses, right? You hear your neighbor's daughter or son practicing on the piano, go bloody annoying, It's like this is their basics. This is what they need to do before they play that Mozart piece. You know what I mean?
And before you get a nice tune,
and it's the same. That's right. It is the same thing for climbing. It's like before you make that run, jump, move, and nothing. Sometimes you need to learn a bit of the other basics first, on how to climb properly and how to move properly. To be more aware of your full body awareness first before you actually try to fly, basically.
Correct. So I would say the like moves like the dinos or the flying and then the run jump, that kind of stuff. That's the power moves already, right? So in terms of strength and conditioning training, when we do programming, so it's the same element. So there's the first segment, right? Mobility and stability. You have to establish that first. Then you must have your muscular endurance first. Then you get your strength. Then you progress on to your power moves or your plyometric stuff, all those things, right? And your
That's right. Yeah.
and all these power moves. So power is always last because these must be set in place. Then you move towards that. And then you have a new skill again. You go back down to, okay, make sure that you're mobile and stable first. You have strength basic there. And then you go on to that power move of that particular skill or technique.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, I think the same fundamentals can be translated to across the board.
So this comes to a very, very interesting point, right, with regards to the peer around you. So why is it at that point in time for you, right? You prefer to be in an environment whereby there's lesser girls than having to be in a dance class or in a so-called yoga class where there's a lot more girls. What is it that is affecting you that you prefer to be in an environment that has got lesser girls?
So for me, I think it started off with, so I was lucky because there was a climbing wall in my JC. So I started off with that, right? And then firstly, I found that, I can actually climb. Because then actually not many girls can climb. At my era, right? My generation, not many girls can climb. And then I found that, I actually can do it. I can scale that slight overhang and then go up, right? The basic overhang, sorry, that time. then I think, and that's just how things are, right? You when you find that you're good at something, you naturally want to deviate towards it and you want to do more of it. I think that this holds true for everybody in every aspect. Right? Then after that, I found out that, and then as I climb more, and then I head out to climb more after I left school, then I realized that actually not many girls are climbing.
Yeah.
Right? And then I started to be exposed to competitions. And then sometimes when you go into a competition, there's really only that few handful of girls in that category, in my category, or who are competing. Then that even so-called, I would say that also plays a part in increasing your chances of experiencing success, or my chances of experiencing success, because I'm not fighting with 50 other girls in my category. So I think this is just like this self-reinforcing cycle. So I certainly do think that, with very few females climbing back then, girls climbing back then, sort of, adds to, contributes to, me experiencing a little bit more success then, and then, like, the more success you experience, then the more you like it, and the more you want to do it. Now, of course, over time, I stopped doing the competitive stuff and all that, and then went more into technical stuff like teaching, and then that's the other side of climbing already. Right? So I'm not sure, what is it like for girls actually these days to climb? Or how they find their motivation, where they derive their motivation from. It's definitely going to be different from mine.
I did remember one of the ladies that I trained, and that was like 5-6 years ago, and she mentioned to me this, that what I've done for this bunch of ladies is that they felt like they're very empowered. They felt like they are doing something that most ladies cannot do, and sometimes better than men. It sounds very sexist at the same time, but I get it. Like, look, most ladies at the point in time do not see themselves competing or going on par with a different
something, with regards to physical strength.
That's right.
We might not necessarily do better than guys.
Yep.
Right? Because this is a sport where strength doesn't matter. Okay, it matters in a way, in a sense, but strength is not everything in this sport.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. So just like golf, like I'm pretty sure there are a lot of lady golfers out there who can just trash and a male golfer out there as well, things like that, because it's so technical. It still requires strength to make that swing, but it's all about good techniques in that swing. So likewise for climbing as well.
So it's true. So when people can't see or they don't understand this aspect, then I have a very simple example for them. Everybody knows my husband, right? He can do, I don't know how many pull-ups or whatever. I don't know, come down, do push-ups, then still can do how many pull-ups, right? So that is strength, right? And I probably, I don't know, can't even do like 5 at that time, right? When I was in my younger days. So so he can, I don't know, he can do all his things, right? But nah, he won't. I still beat him on the wall, big time. So then that's how I illustrate people. So
I'm pretty sure your daughter can beat him on the wall.
So being able to pull, I mean, that's pure strength for guys, and most people see like, wow, I can do something very strong, right? So pure strength doesn't translate to, you know, being successful on the wall.
Yeah. So I do not know about in Singapore, because at the time when I was training this bunch of girls, I had that same observation as well. And this is why I told the girls, it is easier for you to win in your category as a female because there's so little competition there. And if I train you hard enough, you will win. Or your chance of winning is quite high. And much with that line of thought, in just 3 months, one of the girls was able to just constantly trash the competition, even though she's a really new climber. But now I don't think so. There's so many girls climbing here in Australia as well, and
no, even in Singapore.
In Singapore, that's right. Yeah. No, yes. I think there's even more in Singapore. The sport in Singapore is probably more established than in Australia. Those of you guys who are in Singapore right now who think that the sport is very established in Australia, now nowhere close to anywhere in Singapore. Singapore has got like, I know for a fact, right, that they have got like one competition for COVID-19, right? 1 or 2 competition every quarter, every 3 months. All right. You know how many competition do we have here in Australia? Probably one state comp and 1 national comp. That's 2 in a year.
So key question then, how do kids, where do they derive that motivation from to want to do well in the sport? What do you see of your kids then? Where do they get their motivation from?
So, because I think partially it's because there is just no known understanding of the multiple competitions that they have overseas, say in Europe, in Japan, Singapore, right? There's nothing for them to compare. So when they don't know, right, they just train for their own interests, or they train for their outdoor project. And that's one of the motivations they have. There's a lot of good climbing in the Blue Mountains, a lot of good climbings here and there. Yeah, that's right. So for them, that 8A or the climb that 8C, depending on how strong they are, or that boulder climb, that V13 or that V14 kind of thing. A lot of them right now, most of my younger kids who are 15 years old, are trying to hit their V11, V12 kind of thing. Yeah, can you imagine? My goodness, these young people are hitting V11, V12. Like when I was like 18, I was like trying to get my V1 now. Yeah. So, so that is one of the motivation. The other motivation also is that there's getting more and more competitions right now here in Australia, but not as much as what we have in Singapore, as what I've mentioned to you. I did once in the past invited one of these Canberra this girl from Canberra to Singapore to compete. She went over there, and then she saw the amount of competition that we had there in Singapore, and she saw the kind of exposure that our climbers in Singapore have with regards to the IFFC format. It's just like our climbers are so exposed to the exams, it's like they're so used to isolation, they're so used to sitting in the isolation for hours, and then when they're ready to perform, they're out there performing hard and strong. And she was so shocked by that mindset that the Singaporeans had, right? That when she went back to Singapore, she was telling all the other climbers that the competitions that we have here in Australia are just like carnivals. It's just like a plaything.
That's true.
Yeah, that's right. And then she went back to Singapore, have a couple of competitions in there again, and she got trashed, obviously. But she really enjoyed it. And then she came back, and then instead of motivating her to climb, to want to train more, she felt defeated. She was like, I can't compete against these Asians or the guys in Singapore. What's more, the guys in Europe, because they're doing the same thing as well. What's more, the guys in Japan. they are constantly being exposed to these exam concept. They have got so much competition experience in them that they know how to cope with this isolation stress. Sitting in the isolation area for 3 hours or 2 hours, there's a lot of things going through your mind, and it's like there's like, and then when you're during isolation, you hear the crowd cheering out there. And, oh my goodness, he got that
Really
bonus
plays
point.
with your mind.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And how do you control these emotions and stuff like that while you're in isolation? And how do you prep yourself just before you get out there? It requires a lot of practice. And what you realize is that a lot of the athletes here in Australia don't have that kind of practice. So much so that even though they're really good climbers, they will go out there and not be able to handle the so-called exam stress. You know what I mean, right? Yeah. And so many of them, I know of a few climbers who were like that, and when they went out there to Japan to compete and stuff like that, and they said, "Look, I'm going to just forget about competition. I'm going to dedicate my motivation in my training to climb that hard climb the mountains, or to climb the hard climb that on the boulder crack that I want to climb." So that's
Which
where
is,
they
they switch
that's
their,
yeah.
which is great as well, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, to me, that really doesn't. I mean, the love for a sport doesn't really mean that you have to be competing as well. If you can find something else, to be able to complete a project outdoors, or like a hard climb in the mountains, that's the derivative is internal motivation already, right? Because competitions is really extrinsic.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So being able to switch and then think about that's even better actually, because you're getting intrinsic motivation for wanting to do something.
That's the benefit that we have here in Australia. Because the climates in Singapore don't have that benefit. Go Malaysia? There's nothing much in Malaysia. After a while, you get really sick in town.
Yeah, please. Now you can't even cross borders to Malaysia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Go to Thailand. A little bit expensive to keep going to Thailand for these young people. You can't just keep flying over to Australia or to Europe to climb and things like that. It's just too expensive. So I do know of a couple of climbers who were really good climbers, friends of mine who are still very much leisure climbers right now. And they did mention to me at their younger age whereby they kind of stopped climbing for a while because they felt like they're not winning anymore. So their motivation was just to win, that's all. And if you're not winning, climbing is, let's go play chess, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then it's only when they become older they realize that I actually do enjoy the sport. I'm gonna just climb it for the fun of it.
Yeah. Back up the story a little bit, because my girl is climbing now, and actually I did expose my twins to climbing since they were 4 years old. Just go to Climb Asia, mess around with the kiddie groups, and you climb a bit here and there, different groups, and after that another time go on site, join the group, kind of thing. And I wasn't really serious in putting, because my mentality, I mean, most of us PE teachers, our mentality is put the kids through different sports. You don't really have to get them to specialize in anything, as many things as possible. Then next time as they grow up, they can discover their own strength and liking, right? Before they specialize. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. And then of course I did bring them climbing a little bit here and there, and then never serious about getting them to train climbing or whatsoever. In fact, I don't like to train them because it's like always the tiger mom, what? Why can't you? So I don't like doing it. I just want to keep it to just climb for fun. Until one day Chu messaged me. It's like, why don't you try getting Asha to climb more seriously? And I'm like, yeah, she's still small, I don't need. And then she was like, no, I can see that she can climb really well. Why don't you try getting her to bit more, put a bit more time and effort to invest in climbing sessions. And okay. And in the end, so anyway, right now my daughter is climbing with one of our Chu's students, Lynette, he mentioned earlier. So she's climbing, and then and I can see it's the same thing, right? You're good at something, you get the opportunity to be further exposed to it, you like it, you do it better. So it's a vicious cycle for for any person, right? Any child, I think to be able to find that is of great value to any child, right? Find something that she can succeed, or he or she can succeed in, and does well in, and then you try and reinforce it in that particular department. So yeah, she's been climbing that, and then I tell her, so you climb well, learn your lead climbing properly and all that. Then after that, when we can fly, then we go to Uncle Chu's house, and then we stay in Blue Mountains, and we go climb with Uncle Chu over the weekend. No, I don't want to climb outside. I only want to climb in the gym. That wasn't my plan. Right now, I was trying to explain to her, no, we practice and we climb indoors so that we can head out to climb on a real mountain and cliff. No, that's so scary. No. Okay, never mind. You don't go. I go myself.
I think it comes with age, lah. I think give her some time when she's a bit more mature and she sees what's out there.
I mean that's what I mean by that thing, right? Because we are here, we're totally not exposed to what natural climbing is, other than seeing some videos on YouTube, and of course those videos normally look scary because it's always of I don't know, Alex Pujo or Chris Sharma doing some high wall, big wall, that kind of thing, right? It does look scary.
That's right.
So they don't understand it, so they don't get. Then the other thing I wanted to ask you about is your perspectives or your observations on what you see of the parents. How do they support their kids or support the coaches in terms of helping you or supporting you in helping the kids to do well?
Yeah, I'll tell you the difference between this is what I observe, right, even until now, with regards to the Australian parents and the Singaporean parents, is really very, very different. Australian parents, we're talking about elite class, we're talking about elite youth climbers. We're not talking about the normal climb for fun kind of grouping, things like that. The elite climbers in Singapore is the parents are very engaged. It's just like how the parents are in the gymnast association, whereby even parents are quite rivals against the other parents. My child is better than your child, and things like that. It's quite similar to that, but it's not as brutal, whereby the parents are very supportive. The parents actually do come together and try to help the sport grow as well. They are very, very involved in the sport. There's this association called Sports Climbing Australia, SCA. Most of them are being run by parents themselves, and some of them have got their own agenda of wanting their child to be in the team and things like that. But overall, you can tell that a lot of them are very, very passionate about the sport and wanting to see the sport grow for the good of the general public itself. And for the individual, let's say, most of them, their kids are with the national youth group and things like that. And a lot of the kids a lot of their kids are trained by me as well. And the parents are very, very supportive. The parents are like, will bring them to training, and if the training ends a little bit later, the parents are fine by it. The parents will sit behind and wait for the training to be done, and they will talk among themselves. And it's very, very supportive. And sometimes parents are over there would even want to know what the training plan is like, what to do when the kids are not training in the gym, what can they do at home and things like that. They get like training board that I have up there at home, so that they can train. And some of them even have got their own little home gym as well. They're very involved. Whereas in Singapore, right, it's just one very simple thing that I always get from them. Hey, they're not studying enough. Okay, this is one of the questions that one of my athletes asked me. That was quite a while ago. Said, why is it that we see Singaporean climbers whenever they climb here in Australia, when they come to compete in Australia, like people like Li Ting, when Li Ting came to Australia, right, she just trashed the competition. And when they saw YouTubes and when they looked in Instagram, they saw some really strong climbers like Gavin, like Dennis, and they say, why is it you guys got so many strong climbers and so many good climbers in Singapore, right? But none of them are in the World Cup. And then I was like, that's a very good question. And I find that a lot of it is boils down to the societal norm of Singapore. A lot of the guys, right, don't have a choice. They get so good up to the age of 17, and then they go into NS for about 2 years. At that time, I was 3 years, right? Okay. After 2 years, how are you going to compete against the overseas climbers who've been constantly training for that 2 years? You're lost out already. Yeah, even though you're ahead of them when you were 17. Once you go into the army for 2 years, you come out when you're 20 years old. You go up against somebody else who's 20 years old who's been constantly training for that 2 years. Well, you are holding a gun running around the forest, yeah, you can't. You'll be fit, but there's this notion of that skill that you need to constantly drill in and practice, just like playing a tennis. Get that stroke right, get that stroke right, get that stroke right, and keeping consistent. And that's what a lot of our boys have lost during that 2 years of serving the nation, which I don't disagree. Don't get me wrong, right? If I have a son,
it's just how it is. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. If I have a son, I would say yes, you must go serve your nation. Because also that is the law. So yeah, I think your husband will agree with me.
No, I am full on, like, there's all this lady from is it Aware or something? I don't know, things or evidences about how NS is part and parcel of creating teaching our boys to be like chauvinists, male chauvinists and stuff like that. I'm like, please you have children or not?
Yeah, so I think
I teach JC kids before.
Yeah.
I love it, man, when my J2 boys after school they go to NS and then they come back. Every one of them are better boys. They come back better boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, of course, we don't discount the fact that there will be like a few who, this organization or the way that things are done that doesn't suit them, especially very creative people, because it's very stifling for them. But I'm sure over time, I mean, NS also will try to evolve, to how to accommodate these people. But generally, all boys go.
Yeah. So then you look at the girls. Being in an Asian background, right? Girls naturally would be going to uni, getting really good at their grades, becoming like my students, doctors and lawyers. And then once you go into profession like that,
you no longer can go perform at a competitive.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's very hard.
You can still climb well, but
yeah.
But for your own pleasure.
Yeah. Right? I think only one person that I've seen that's been very, very successful in doing what she would like to do is Li Ting. She's able to find that balance in really doing her profession really well, and at the same time dedicating that 2 or 3 days to train really hard, just for that outdoor project in South Africa or for the competition thing. She's more of an outdoor climber. And because of that motivation, you always see her climbing in, say, Border World, sitting there by herself or with a few friends on that moon board, and it's just very focused on the climb, just for that 2 or 3 days. And she really puts in that 110% to make sure she trains well during that time. And not everybody, right, at her age, with such professional job that she has, right, or that anybody has, right, to be able to know how to get that balance right. Most of the time, even for after my work, right, all I want to do is just go home and sleep.
Slack, right? I need my chill out time already, right?
That's right. Yeah.
It's true. Especially if you have a desk-bound job. Oh my god. Sitting at the boulder wall, you might just fall asleep. Right? Instead of focusing on your project.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. No, so and that's where the difference lies, right? The very elite and the I'm just doing it because I like it.
This exactly boils back down to the notion of why I was saying at the start of the talk, right? I feel that to become a really true elite athlete, right, is up here.
It's all in the mind. To end off on today's note, the other thing that I want to get your opinion on is also about culture norms.
Mm.
Because although you're in Australia, right, it's actually quite multinational. And especially your exposure, I would say, right? Right, you wouldn't only be meeting like the Caucasian kids, you will also be meeting, I would say there's a Korean community as well, right? Korean, Japanese, like pretty multinational actually, maybe even more so than us. So even then, between the different cultures, are there differences in terms of how we need to handle the kids, or how the parents behave in terms of supporting the kids?
It's actually very true. I mean, I'm not being racist here or anything like that. It's nothing racist or it's a fact. Sometimes people say, hey, you say things about this nation and stuff like all this race and stuff like that. I'm not being racist because it's always happening. Right? It's scientifically proven. I've got a big sample size to show it to you that we Asians, all right. Whenever I train Asians, more often than not, the parents are very, especially for girls, the parents are very protective. What if she injure herself? Are you so dangerous, so high? What if she falls? Yeah. I want her to be more ladylike. I don't want her to be so muscular. And I like, do you see any of my girls here looking muscular? In fact, they look more lean and they look more ballerina-like than anything else. Yeah, that's right. So I think we can put that aside now. She's not going to get muscular like what you see in Arnold Schwarzenegger or Cliffhanger from Sylvester Stallone. So this is what I tell them. But usually, a lot of these Asian parents, they are still very skeptical about it, and also they are very concerned about their studies. More
so than the Caucasian parents, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's still very on about education, about results from their education, things like that. And this is what I'll tell most of my. It's not that the Caucasian or the Australians don't value that; they still value that, and a lot of my Australian students are very smart. And the parents still want them to excel in their studies, but they trust that they will do well. Frankly speaking, my Asian students will do a lot better. They really do study a lot more. That technically they should be playing more. But for some reason, I don't know what's about Asian, right? It's that we have to keep bugging our children to study. I don't know why.
Are you talking about me? Are you talking about me?
No, I'm not thinking about you. I'm thinking that even though they're clearly studying, they're getting their A's, we're still telling them you need to study more. Like, oh, mommy, I got my A already. What more do you want me to do?
The Tiger Mountain.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So whereas they getting their B's, they're getting their A's, and the parents are satisfied by it, and the parents are sort of on that same note, balancing it with trying to help them to sport as well. So that's the difference that I see mainly with that.
Thinking of moving more into training girls, focusing on training girls, and why training girls needs to be slightly different from when we're looking at boys or their male counterparts. Right? Because at the end of the day, we are working with these sporty athletic girls who are still impressionable at that age, and then they are also looking at a lot of influences from social media, from whatever's happening to other male athletes. Then they forget that they are different. So they may not be very, very different, but then our girls also need to learn that they are different. Then in order for them to know that they are a little bit different, then the coaches also need to know in order to teach them that and pass that message down. So I think that's one of the crucial points that actually coaches these days need to pick up on. So I think in the next session we will dive deeper into coaching young female athletes.